Welcome to the news on NTA International. I'm Comfort Amadu. First, the headlines. Nigerian Immigration Service hands over 11 Libya-bound human trafficking victims to National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP. Nigerian Meteorological Agency warns of accompanying thunderstorms as rainy season commences. And on our Business Weekly, Nigeria exports agricultural produce worth 615 billion naira in fourth quarter of 2022. Now the news in detail. It was a remarkable feeling of nostalgia as President Muhammadu Buhari this Sunday had an emotional reunion with his old schoolmates at his Daura country home. State House correspondent Ademusambo reports from Daura.
It was an exciting moment that brought back fond memories between President Muhammadu Buhari and his old schoolmates. The meeting provided the opportunity to thank Allah for sparing their lives to meet once again. Members of the group, under the auspices of the Association of 1953 Middle School Intake, were 96 at formation, but only about one quarter of them are now surviving. The latest among those that passed away was Senator Abba Ali, a friend and decades-long associate of the president. Until his demise, Senator Abba Ali was chairman, National Governing Council of the African Peer Review Mechanism. President Buhari and his guests prayed for the repose of his soul and those of the others that died between the last time they met and now. The Nigerian leader inquired about each other's health and well-being as well as their family members. He expressed joy and happiness for the meeting, saying he got the same feeling that he used to have when they were young. They chatted for a while, talked about the school days and shared a lot of memories. The president thanked the schoolmates for their respect and feelings for him, which they have retained all these years. Members of the delegation took turns during the closed-door engagement to appreciate President Buhari for his selflessness in service, sacrifice for Nigeria, and the giant strides achieved in critical economic sectors, which they say will remain indelible in the minds of Nigerians. From Daura, Katsina State, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Away from that, the World Health Organization has released the first global report on sodium intake reduction. The report shows the world was off track to achieving its global target of reducing sodium intake of 30% by 2025. The report notes that sodium, an essential nutrient, increases the risk of heart disease, stroke and premature death when eaten in excess. It further reveals only 5% of WHO member states are protected by mandatory and comprehensive sodium reduction policies and advise member states to implement sodium intake reduction policies without delay in order to mitigate the harmful effects of excessive salt consumption. The WHO Director General Tedros urges all countries to adopt WHO Best Buy for sodium reduction and for manufacturers to implement the WHO benchmarks for sodium content in food. The 4 Best Buys include reformulating foods to contain less salt, setting targets for the amount of sodium in foods and meals, establishing public food procurement policies to limit salt or sodium-rich foods in public institutions such as hospitals, schools, workplaces, and nursing homes, and runs of package labeling that helps consumers select products lower in sodium. And French Senate approves Macron's pension plan as protests rage, and Cyclone Freddy hits Mozambique for a second term in 2 weeks. Uche Ugochukwu has this and more on Global Updates segment 14.
The French Senate has approved President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plan, described as unpopular as demonstrators took to the streets to oppose the changes. Senators adopted the reforms by 195 votes to 112, bringing the package, which is raising the retirement age by 2 years, closer to becoming law. Tens of thousands of Israelis protested across the country in the 10th consecutive week of protests against government's judicial reform plans that critics view as a threat to democracy. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the changes that would curb the power of courts will restore balance between the branches of government. At one of the rallies, opposition leader Yair Lapid said this was Israel's greatest crisis. In another development, Israeli troops shot dead 3 armed Palestinians near the West Bank city of Nablus on Sunday. The Israeli army said the gunmen had fired at an Israeli army post. Palestinian officials have not commented on the incident. There has been a marked surge in violence between Palestinians and Israel in recent months. In Africa, South Africa's anti-corruption watchdog has cleared President Cyril Ramaphosa of any wrongdoing in connection with the 2020 robbery at his Fela farm. The public protector said it has notified implicated parties of the preliminary findings of its probe over the theft of large amounts of cash from Ramaphosa's Fela farm. Meanwhile, President Ramaphosa says he cannot comment yet on the preliminary reports. And reports say Cyclone Freddy has hit Mozambique for a second time in 2 weeks, killing at least 1 person, ripping roofs off houses and prompting a lockdown in one port town. The Southern African nation has received more than a year's worth of rainfall in the past 4 weeks. Freddy may become the longest-lasting storm on record, having formed to the northwest of Australia 34 days ago. Residents have been urged to move into temporary shelters, including schools, churches, and warehouses. That's the global update. I am Uche Ugochukwu.
In Nigeria, the Meteorological Agency says the 2023 rainy season has commenced and warns that the season will be accompanied by thunderstorms and hazardous weather conditions. It is with Musa Babaliu.
The first rain that dropped in Abuja was on 25th February this year. Since then, there has been frequent rainfalls not only in Abuja but in parts of Niger, Kaduna, Nasarawa and Kogi states. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency described the rain in the month of February in the north-central state as pre-onset. However, the season has commenced in coastal states.
The season is expected to range from 84 to 283 days. Abuja and surrounding states are expected to witness between 170 to 230 days of rain.
The agency cautioned that the season will be accompanied by thunderstorms, turbulence, lightning strike, strong winds, and heavy rainfall.
Our main mandate is to produce the forecast and the relay, and then we have also other enabling agencies. That is their own mandate to now translate this information into and then also get it implemented at the grassroots level.
NIMET said the weather condition could pose significant threats to the safety of lives and property and could also affect aviation industry. Consequently, NIMET assured pilots and airport users that it has installed weather monitoring systems and thunder detectors across the airport nationwide as a measure to mitigate the effects of thunderstorms on the aviation industry. In Abuja, Musa Babaliu, NTA News.
The deployment of immediate relief to the victims of fire disaster by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, in Malawa and Karingia villages of Jigawa State has been described as a major sense of responsibility exhibited by the agency. This was achieved through the relentless efforts of the State Deputy Governor, Umar Namadi, who always ensures that his people get the right support. Ilyasu Ali Yakubu reports.
Nigeria is one of the many countries in the world that has been battling with the management of disasters, especially flood, fire, and building collapse. The failed management of these Herculean tasks is not unconnected to the lack of responsive intervention from the first respondents, ranging from state, local, and community levels. Although the Jigawa State Deputy Governor Umar Namadi, who is also the APC governorship candidate, stands out in demonstrating capacity and commitment in making sure that his people get the immediate support whenever disaster occurs. In the case of the recent fire disaster that hit communities of Malamawa and Karangia in Kiawa local government area of the state, the people were adequately supported by both the state and the federal government through NEMA.
Today, the DG NEMA is here with us. He has brought a lot of relief to these people.
The victims thank both the state and federal government for the immediate support and however express confidence with the intervening spirit of Umar Namadi. Director General National Emergency Management Agency NEMA Mustafa Habib Ahmed, who presented the relief to the affected victims, commiserated with the government and people of Jigawa State.
The situation is terrible. More than half of the town, you have gone around with us to see, has totally been destroyed. People have lost their houses, their belongings, and everything you can think of.
Items delivered included mattresses, clothing, building materials, as well as food items, among other support. From Kiawa local government area of Jigawa State, Ilyasu Aliyakubu, NTA News.
In other news, the Nigerian Immigration Service has handed 11 Libya-bound human trafficking victims over to the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons in Sokoto. A statement by the Nigerian Immigration Service Public Relations Officer Tony Akuneme indicates that the Comptroller of Immigration, Ilela Border Command Ado Rano Sabo, revealed this while transferring the victims to the Zonal Commandant of NAPTIB in Sokoto. The statement explains that the 11 victims, all women, were apprehended in Niger Republic on their way to Libya. The women were repatriated to Nigeria by the Niger Republic Police and handed over to the Nigerian Immigration Service at the Ilela Border Command. Akuneme further reveals that the young women are from different parts of the country and are aged between 19 and 37. He advised Nigerians to desist from undertaking such perilous journeys, noting that most victims end up being used for labor exploitation, prostitution, or organ harvesting. Moving on, the House of Representatives has shifted resumption of plenary from 14th March to 21st March 2023. A statement from the Office of the Clerk of the House, Yahya Nzaria, indicates that the change in the earlier slated date of resumption is to enable House members participate in the rescheduled governorship and state houses of assembly elections. And we'll now take a break. More reports in a moment. Stay tuned.
It is time for us to leave this place.
One of your earrings is missing.
No one will find it.
I'm not willing to take that chance.
I have a big plan, man.
What do you want?
I want a senior position at Dubai.
If anything happens to me, go through the content of this envelope and check every single thing.
It's done. No one will ever find out the truth.
The National Lottery Regulatory Commission, in fulfilling its mandate of regulating the operations of lottery and gaming business in Nigeria, sets standards, vets lottery and gaming license applicants, witnesses draws, verifies winners, arbitrates on disputes between players and operators, while collaborating with enforcement agencies to clamp down on illegal operators. The agency is committed to sustainable and transparent gaming and lotteries, driven by professionalism and leading technologies for socio-economic development. National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Lottery the right way.
Now, they're saying the election should be a do-or-die affair, but a platform for healthy competition seems to be losing its vital means among some Nigerians, as seen after the first lapse of the 2023 general elections. And this is because the once cordial relationship among people is now being threatened by political differences, ideology and region. In this report, Michael Lally sought to know what should be done.
It is the electioneering season and a time when opinions invariably differ and usually divided either in favor or against a particular party or individuals. From the electorate, however, healthy debate devoid of provocation is expected to be the norms. But the emotion put into the 2023 general elections is making some people to cross the caution lines. He narrates a scenario on a social media group platform and how issues revolving around the election almost tore the membership apart.
It was very explosive until the admin had to ban all forms of political discussion on the platform for temper to cool down. Then after that, there was a kind of, appeal that what we are ultimately striving to achieve is the progress of Nigeria, irrespective of whichever tribe that each person belongs to.
The social media seems to be the active force for driving these sentiments, with some users supporting their opinions with religious claim and ethnicity.
Don't allow yourself to be used to truncate proper, sane processes.
In the face of this ugly scenario, what then should be the role of the citizens in entrenching peaceful atmosphere?
Election is not do or die. It doesn't matter whether the person is a Muslim or a Christian or other religion. As long as Nigerian come, we think Nigeria. We need to begin to re-irritate our people's mind to think Nigeria first before any other thing.
Stakeholders in the Nigeria project want the citizens not to allow issues like election divide their common aspiration for a prosperous and virile nation. In Lagos, Michael Alale, NTA.
Away from that, the Global Mining Standards and Guidelines Group revealed that just 10% of women are found at management levels in the mining sector. This makes it the lowest in any major industry. And to promote women involvement in mining and advocate an improvement in their working conditions, a meeting was held by the Women in Mining Group in partnership with the Australian High Commission in Accra.
Traditionally, mining has been considered a male-dominated field. In sub-Saharan Africa, where South Africa and Ghana are leaders in the mining industry, there have been many calls to improve these figures. To scale up women participation in the mining sector as part of marking the International Women's Day, a forum has been held by the Women in Mining and the Australian High Commission in Accra. The Australian High Commissioner to Ghana, Madam Berenice Owen-Jones, said her outfit is partnering with the Women in Mining Group to facilitate economic empowerment of women in the mining sector.
Mining is very important to Australia. We have important commercial interests in West Africa in the extractive sector, and Australians are involved in every aspect of the mining industry, from exploration to drilling. So holding a Women in Mining event combines the two very nicely, and it was very pleasing to see so many women, many Ghanaian women, involved in all aspects of mining here in Ghana.
In 2014, of the 10,949 members of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, there were only 659 women, making about 6% of the total membership. These figures have not changed significantly over the years.
A 26-year-old suspected drug trafficker, Alai Madu, has been arrested with 10 kilograms of skunk. The suspect, believed to be a former Boko Haram fighter for 15 years, was arrested by NDLA operatives along Abuja-Kaduna Express Road during a sting operation to cleanse the street of drugs ahead of the general elections. In the same vein, 3 cannabis farms measuring 39.8 hectares have been destroyed in Kajola, a border town between Edo and Ondo State. A suspected traditional ruler, Akinola Adebayo, was arrested in connection with the culturing of the illicit substance. Meanwhile, the week-long operation saw the arrest of 35 others over alleged trafficking of more than 2.2 tons of illicit drugs, to include heroin and skunk, at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, and 12 other states. Meanwhile, now let's bring you a report by our reporter on our weekly business.
Nigeria has exported agricultural produce worth 170.59 billion naira on the fourth quarter of 2022. This shows a rise of 104.59% when compared to the value recorded in third quarter of 2022 of 84.21 billion naira. Most of the agricultural produce were exported to Europe and Asia. Export of agricultural produce was dominated by cocoa beans valued at 88.80 billion naira, followed by sesame seeds with 38.56 billion naira. In the same vein, Nigeria imported agricultural goods worth 444.82 billion naira in the fourth quarter of 2022. And away from that, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is yet to make any pronouncement on its position on the Naira design policy. Most Nigerians are having it difficult to withdraw cash on the ATMs, just as business operators continued to reject the old notes.
Since yesterday I collected the 5,000 after 2 hours in the bank, nobody is collecting the 5,000 from me.
As the president has not said anything, nobody is taking old notes in the market.
And the report from South Africa indicates that the country's rand weakened after cabinet reshuffle. President Ramaphosa reshuffled his cabinet following economic crisis facing the country. South Africa's economic activity, as measured by GDP growth, fell 1.3% on the last quarter of 2022.
We are establishing 2 new ministries. The first of these is the Minister for Electricity, to deal with the immediate crisis of load shedding.
And in Europe, Britain says it will pay France around £480 million over 3 years to try to stop migrants traveling in small boats across the channel.
And that's because there is a global migration problem that we are seeing the impact of on our shores and across Europe. And as we saw recently, tragically, people dying off the coast of Italy.
But it will depend on our commitment, our willingness. But I'm sure we will do it.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen urged members of the U.S. House of Representatives on Friday to raise the federal debt ceiling without conditions, warning that a default on U.S. debt would cause economic and financial collapse.
In my assessment and those of economists across the board, a default on our debt would trigger an economic and financial catastrophe. I urge all members of Congress to come together to address the debt limit without conditions and without waiting until the last minute.
Yellen, in budget testimony before the Republican-controlled House Ways and Means Committee, said that failure to increase the $31.4 trillion borrowing cap will threaten the economic progress that the U.S. has made since COVID-19 pandemic.
Weekly business report by Musa Wabaliu there. Now, the idea of the Foreign Service being a big family came to bear when the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyama, honored 110 of its retired staff, and they include those that retired in 2019 to 2022. Garba Natala reports that it was a vibrant get-together that recognized whom duly deserves honor and unity that exists in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
One after the other, the retirees were presented awards by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Owing to their contribution to national development while in service, the Foreign Affairs Ministry deemed it fit to recognize their contribution to national development, as most of them spent their career life overseas, while others at home.
Always be hopeful and available. When I retired and I came back to Nigeria, I was hoping to just relax and put my leg up after 30 years of hard work, and then suddenly I found myself, thrown in to come and join you guys here, for 6 years.
Equally, the ministry paid a tribute to those that passed on after their retirement and urged those still in service to work hard and exhibit professionalism and excellence in the discharge of their duties. Some of the celebrants say their dedication, hard work, perseverance, and selflessness has paid off.
3 years afterwards, the ministry remembered and called me I feel elated. I feel fulfilled that the 35 years in service, though not all of them were spent in foreign affairs, has been recognized.
My candid advice for those officers who are leaving behind is to dedicate themselves to this service, the foreign service, which is highly elitist in nature, and then there should be decorum and fairness in all the things and in their conduct.
110 retired staff who retired between 2019 and 2022 were honored by the ministry. In Abuja, Garba Muhammad Natala, NTA News.
And now to sports update.
The Nigeria under-18 male handball team finished third in the under-18 category of the IHF Trophy Intercontinental Championship 2023 in Costa Rica after a slim 28-27 loss to Georgia Sunday morning. The Nigerian boys had a chance of winning the title and also qualifying for the IHF Under-20 World Championship, but the Georgians proved to be the brick wall. This is Nigeria's first defeat in the IHF Trophy Challenge since they lost against Chinese Taipei in Kosovo in 2019. And to football, Super Eagles defender William Troost-Ekong is set to be omitted from Nigeria's squad for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations two-legged qualifiers against Guinea-Bissau. The on loan Watford centre-back is still recuperating from the injury he sustained in Salernitana's Serie A clash against Hellas Verona last month, with Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro, who is in Italy to monitor some Nigerian players, confirming that the defender is not yet fit and has little chance of making his squad for the game against the Jotters. And finally, boxing promoter Eddie Hearn has broken his silence on the poor ticket sales for Anthony Joshua's April 1 clash with Jermaine Franklin at the O2 Arena in London. Despite instantly selling out the 20,000-seater in the past, there are still thousands of tickets left less than 3 weeks to Joshua's upcoming bout. But Hearn claims the arena will be packed out on fight night, putting the poor sales down to the fact that they haven't given out tickets to the undercard fighters. With Sports Update, Bade Adeleye, NTA News.
This is what we end the news. But before we go, a reminder on the need to join NTA in the campaign against rape and rapists. Thanks for watching. I'm Comfort Amodo.